Now, to talk to us more about that part of our colonial history, we have with us on the show Professor Jose Victor Torres from the Salle University Department of History. Prof. Vic, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Sir Jesse and Miss Gretchen. It's nice to see you guys again. And good evening to all of your viewers.
First, this, of course, is not a often known fact of our history, the British occupation of Manila and Cavite. How crucial is this piece of history?
Well, the British occupation was actually, as it was said in the video, it was just a small event. No? But in the small picture, it also meant we know the extent of the British Empire during that period. But in the bigger picture, the British invasion of the Philippines proved to be fatal to the Spanish colonization of the Philippines because the vulnerability of the colonial empire now, not only internationally but locally, eventually came out. It was shown, and right after the British occupation of the Philippines, there was a lot of reactions now for many Filipinos because they suddenly realized, well, it turns out they were not as strong as as strong as they seem to be. And so it had a very effect that would eventually last for, well, almost half a century, almost 100 years, until finally changes in the in our history, would bring about the so-called nationalist movement that would eventually lead to our independence.
Okay, Prof. Just taking a look at history and putting it side by side, it's quite debatable who would have been the better colonizer, because some people say that the British was able to take good care of the countries under them. Naming Australia, naming Canada, naming New Zealand, and looking at also the colonies of Spain. How do you think the Philippines would have changed had we been occupied by Britain for a long time?
Well, it would basically just be the same as Spain. And what do I mean by that? Remember that when we were occupied by Spain, it was already the age of the colonial empire, and of course, that colonial occupation would affect largely our history. We must remove the idea of the fact that colonialism is good. The colonialism actually was evil, and the British occupation of India wasn't that exactly peaceful. Now, remember, they had the mutinies that eventually happened with the army, and of course the problem with regards to their the development of the economic products, which led to, of course, many of the decline of some economic principles and products related, of course, to the British colonial empire. In the long run, probably I could say that, except for the fact that it may have been a benevolent colonialism, it would just basically be the same. Because remember that in the 19th century, Europe itself was transforming. And from the English, we have the philosophies of liberalism that began in France. Then, of course, the establishment of a constitutional monarchy. Then, of course, the economic development of the Europe. And this would eventually also lead to Spain, who is part of the European Empire, to start enforcing the very same thing that's being learned in England, and to the Philippines. We eventually would have the Spanish Cortes. Then, of course, we would be open to world trade at the start of the 19th century. And of course, the idea of liberalism would permeate Spanish colonial society in the Philippines. So a lot of these things are basically the same, because we have to understand also that although they were different countries, they were affecting each other.
Now, I want to pick up on one point you raised earlier, Prof. Torres, how colonialism and imperialism remains to be sticking points when we're talking about monarchies. That leads me to my question, where is the monarchy headed now, the British monarchy to be exact? I mean, historically, how do monarchies stand the test of time, especially at such crucial junctures, such as the death of a central figure as big as Queen Elizabeth?
Let us put it this way. No, whenever we look at the a constitutional monarchy, the parliament and the prime minister are the ones running the state. The royalty are the ones running the country, and sometimes it could always been said that the royalty was just like a figure, no, of the empire, okay, and of course it was the parliament and the prime minister that was running the actual government. No, so how big was the impact of the death of the Queen today? With regards to the governance of the British Empire, we still can't say, no, because the government has already changed, and we've seen a lot of things happen in England during the past few years. At the time where the Queen Elizabeth would only give statements, okay? But with regards to the recognition of Britain as a country, no, of course, it is the words of the Queen or the royalty that would hold a permanent message, not to the people. I would also like sometimes to compare it the Prime Minister and the Parliament run things internally, and of course the British Empire, the royalty, were the ones running the country externally. No? So there is still an impact. There is still a very, very large impact. But of course, the separation of constitutional duties of these two entities eventually would provide a good balance of governance for the empire.
Okay, again, impact of the monarchy still, of course, staying strong. Again, thank you very much for your insights this evening, Professor Jose Victor Torres from the Salle University Department of History.